Commission was doing the review a few years ago, I remember a statement made by one of the members when he said, Guys-Pachit Harbor is nearly as big as Prince Edward Island, where they have 27 MLAs, and yet only one is going to serve the area of Guys-Pachit Harbor. But despite the size of Guys-Pachit Harbor, Mr. Speaker, which can take you nearly a day to travel if you go into every nook and cranny, the population is only around 11,000. Despite the size and the small population, when it comes to competitive spirit and agility in sports, Guys-Pachit Harbor athletes take a back seat to no one. A good indication is in the resolution, as I introduced earlier this afternoon, when I congratulated two young fellows from Guysborough County for being named to the Canada Games men's softball team. Donnelly Archibald from Aspen and Corey Avery from Larry's River in Guysborough County. Softball, or fast pitch, is a sport that is big in only certain areas of the province now, but it is rebounding, and in the interest in the sport is beginning to grow once again. Guysborough County is one of the areas where the sport has never really faded. When I say this, I think of the Antigonish-Guysborough Men's Fastball League. And Mr. Chairman, for quite a number of years in my younger days, I played in that league. No, I was a third baseman usually on. They always put me in the spot where they could get the line drives at me. So, and Mr. Speaker, sometimes that happens in here as well. But anyway, Mr. Speaker, when you consider that there are only 15 members named to the Nova Scotia Canada Games men's softball team, and that 2 are from Guysborough County, I would say that was pretty impressive. Keep in mind that all the teams have not yet announced their athletes who will be on the teams, but there is not a doubt in my mind that Corey and Donnelly will not be the only athletes from Guys-Pachit Harbor named to the teams prior to the opening of the Canada Games in Regina on August the 6th. Mr. Speaker, did you realize that Nova Scotia is the only province to have a fully volunteer mission staff, 18 in total, and they won the inaugural Claude Hardy Award for the best mission staff at the 2001 Summer Games in London, Ontario, and again at the 2003 Winter Games in Bathurst, Campbellton, New Brunswick. Mr. Speaker, for the record, I would like to read the names of the 2005 mission staff, and on behalf of the Government Caucus and all members of the legislature, thank them for their outstanding work. Anitra Dagley, Frank Dennis, Beth Elahari, Adele Poirier, Caitlin Rochon, and Nancy Tokarek are all from the Halifax Regional Municipality. Jody Henderson, Lynn Robertson, and Jan Wallace from Dartmouth in the HRM. Jane McKinnon from Hammonds Plains. Jeff Ledrew, who resides in Upper Tantano. 2 residents of the Annapolis Valley will accompany Team Nova Scotia, and they are Ted Meldrum of Colebrook and Mike Trinacity from Berwick. The remaining 3 mission staff are Gerard McIsaac of Pictou, Joe LeBlanc from Victoria Mines, Cape Breton County, and Ness Timmons of South Bar, Cape Breton County. At the last Summer Games in London, Team Nova Scotia brought back 46 medals, along with the Centennial Cup Award to the team that makes the greatest improvements from one Summer Games to the next or one Winter Games to the next. This was the 3rd Centennial Cup won by Nova Scotia, as we also won it in Lethbridge at the Winter Games in 1975 and at the 1981 Summer Games in Thunder Bay, Ontario. Mr. Speaker, we have been fortunate enough to host 2 Canada Games in Nova Scotia. We hosted the initial Canada Summer Games in Halifax in 1969, and then the 1987 Winter Games in Cape Breton. And we are now preparing to host 2011 Canada Winter Games in one of the regions of Nova Scotia. Mr. Speaker, speaking of the Winter Games, I had the great pleasure of representing our Minister of Sport and Recreation for Nova Scotia at the official opening of the 2003 Games in Bathurst, Campbellton region of New Brunswick. It was there when the chair of the Canada Games Council, Mr. Larry Smith, unveiled a new Canada Games logo after having used the same one for the previous 36 years. And Mr. Speaker, I'd I would have to tell you that I was very proud that day, that Saturday afternoon in Campbell, New Brunswick, when I stood on the stage with all ministers of sport and recreation and territories for every province and territories in Canada, and to see the young athletes that were there representing Nova Scotia. There was a curling team that was out of Guysborough County. The Sheddabuckta Curling Club was there representing the province. Ladies team. There was Donelda Maddie, who was the coach of that team, was there. Sidney Crosby from Halifax Cole Harbour played in the hockey tournament, as well as a young guy from Antigonish. The member from Antigonish is riding. His name escapes me right now. His first name escapes me, but I'm pretty sure that his last name was Vanderweel. So he played with the hockey team as well. Mr. Speaker, I will wrap up this evening by just mentioning the Canada Games as a tremendous opportunity for athletes. Just look at the people who have participated, and I've already mentioned Sidney Crosby at the 2002 Winter Games in New Brunswick. This year's NBA MVP Steve Nash of the Phoenix Suns, who played for the British Columbia men's basketball team in the 1993 Summer Games in Kamloops. And Corey Koski, who played for Manitoba on their men's baseball team at the same Summer Games in Kamloops in the summer of 1993. Koski, of course, is the regular starting third baseman of the Toronto Blue Jays. The theme of this year's Games in Regina is No Limits, and will provide a positive environment that offers fulfillment, cultivates many new friendships while fostering leadership and development. My time, Mr. Speaker, is probably, I'll get some time left, I guess. It's likely nearing an end, but has been a pleasure to speak this evening on these historic chambers about the athletic abilities of the youth from Guysborough County and Sheet Harbour, while also discussing what a tremendous organization we have involved in the preparation of the 2005 Canada Summer Games from Nova Scotia. And Mr. Speaker, I would like to wish that Canada Games team from Nova Scotia all the best on behalf of all the members of the legislature and everybody from Nova Scotia. So having said that, I'll take my seat.
Thank you. Recognize all members from Sackville-Cobequid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I thank the member from Guysborough Sheet Harbour for bringing this resolution forward. And I too want to convey on behalf of our caucus, the NDP, best wishes to the athletes, especially mentioned from the honourable member from Guysborough Sheet Harbour, and wishing them luck later this summer in the Canada Games, which are out in Regina in Saskatchewan, the province of Saskatchewan. I know how excited many of these athletes, I believe there's a 449 member team going out to Regina this year to participate in the Canada Games, and I believe there's about 361 athletes. The rest are coaches and support teams, and actually I think this year they're even involving 4 artists to go out and hopefully capture the spirit of the Games. Mr. Speaker, I know for a fact that these young athletes throughout the province are very excited right now. Many of them are training and competing to make the Canada Games team. Many of them have been on the core team for the last couple of years and have been trained to try to achieve their goals of attending these games, because they are important. They're important for the province, they're important for the country, especially when it comes to involvement and the involvement of our youth in sports and activities throughout this country, Mr. Speaker, because it's a stepping stone for many of them. It is. They go on to represent our country in national and international meets. It truly is an opportunity for them to shine and really be proud of what their achievements have been and really where they come from and the area they represent. I know the Nova Scotia athletes will be very proud to carry the flag from our province and represent our province as ambassadors in Saskatchewan. I had the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, in 1989 to be chosen as an athlete for the Canada Games team. Then we actually
water bucket really heavy? Was that a
we
heavy
actually
water bucket?
we actually went to Saskatchewan in Saskatoon, Mr. Speaker. So I know that the athletes here in Nova Scotia will have a great time in Saskatchewan. The province really knows how to put on a world-class, first-class event, and I know that they'll come away knowing that this was a first-class national multi-sport event, and have long memories, as I do, as I did many years ago, Mr. Speaker. But I do have some concerns around what we see in sports right now, especially when it comes to funding, Mr. Speaker, because I think this government has really dropped the ball on funding our athletes in this province. I know that there's a strong initiative from the Department of Health Promotion to encourage our youth, especially, but residents in the province, to be more active and get involved in all aspects of a healthier lifestyle. And these athletes that are going to be representing our province, they're way ahead of the game, Mr. Speaker. They're training now, they're committed to their sports, their events, from track and field to baseball to swimming to rowing, Mr. Speaker. But the main thing that I find time and time again when I run into residents, especially our youth that are involved in sports, is the funding problem, Mr. Speaker. Government over the years have really cut into what governments used to provide for funding, especially in training for our athletes and for our team, Mr. Speaker. Many of these athletes that train throughout the year to try to make our provincial teams and our provincial events that we try to send them away to national meets incur a huge cost, Mr. Speaker. It's so hard for these athletes and their families, their parents, to even support them in their initiatives to be involved in sport in this province, and it's so expensive. And I'm discouraged when I hear athletes, like the young athletes that are going to represent our province in the Legion National Track and Field Championships, which is, I think, 2 weeks prior to the Canada Games, Mr. Speaker. I was discouraged to find out that these athletes are being asked to fund their own uniforms, Mr. Speaker. I brought it up in this House before. I know that I had brought a similar resolution, or a resolution forward, asking for the government to fund the athletes and fund their uniforms, and it was actually named, Mr. Speaker, by the Minister in charge of Health Promotion, which I found disappointing in his response to that, and not taking an initiative of supporting these young athletes. I know I'm off a little bit from this resolution, but it just shows, and I know the member from Guysborough-Sheet Harbour is very proud of the athletes and the young men and women in his area of the province that are active in his community, are involved in sport, and to the point where they're excelling at it, where they make the provincial team, and now they've made the leap into representing this province on a national stage, Mr. Speaker, that they find it hard, I'm sure, and just like many MLAs in this province find it hard when we get those calls from teams, when we get those calls from athletes, just asking, where can I get some funding? We're so underfunded that the travel cost now is outrageous for some of these athletes, especially the ones that are excelling, Mr. Speaker, the ones that are making our provincial teams and the national teams. They have to travel long distances. The member from Guysborough-Sheet Harbour mentioned in his response how large his area is. It's the size of Prince Edward Island. But just imagine, there's athletes in his area, there's athletes in Cape Breton that need to get up to the city or other parts of the province to participate in some of these provincial teams, and a lot of them actually refuse to go and can't go because the family members can't afford for them to be on these provincial and national teams, Mr. Speaker. That's why this government needs to address this serious issue about funding to our athletes and to our sports organizations throughout this province. They're struggling. They're trying to compete with nonprofit groups for money from the residents. They're out fundraising, selling chocolate bars, trying to hold bingos, and just trying to get enough money to send these young athletes away to represent our province and hopefully go on to bigger and better things. With my opportunity of representing this province in Saskatoon in 1989, I had a goal of mine achieved when I met a former Canada Games athlete, a decathlete of ours, Dave Steen, who went on to represent our province, or our country actually, in the Olympics, and I believe was a bronze medalist in the Olympics, Mr. Speaker. So it's very important that our young athletes have the opportunity to represent our province and attend these national meets, but it's becoming more difficult for these young athletes to make it to that higher stage and try to hopefully promote what we have in this province. We have great athletes here. We have it's our assets in this province when it comes to especially our youth in sports is amazing. We have in my own community, I know this year was a banner year for some of our hockey teams that made or won provincial titles. And it was amazing to see, you know, that they were so happy to make it on to going on to representing our province in Atlantic championships and some actually national championships. But the biggest concern is that they didn't know leading up to their events that they could even afford to go, because they had really a lack of funding, a lack of a core support or core funding from government that would enable these teams, when they compete and they achieve these great goals of winning provincial titles, to go on to national events. And I would hope that the member from Guysborough Sheet Harbour will echo what I'm saying, and I know he feels similar to his fellow colleagues and caucus members, and especially the cabinet minister, and especially the Minister of Health Promotion, because I think if we can get the Minister of Health Promotion to realize the importance of core funding to our athletes and our teams in this province, then his job will be easier, and the job of the Minister of Health down the road will be easier, because that's the whole purpose of health promotion, is to promote healthier lifestyles. And these kids, the ones that the member from Guysborough Sheet Harbour mentioned, who made the Canada Games team, and the other 361 athletes who are going to represent this province, and I know they'll do it very proudly, will applaud the government if they come up with increased ways for them to achieve their goals and hopefully represent this province and represent our country in the future, Mr. Speaker, in many events down the road. So thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The member for Halifax Titan Park.
Get back to mine. Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. It gives me a lot of pleasure to be here to talk tonight about this resolution before us. I thank the member from Guysborough Sheet Harbour for acknowledging and recognizing the young people in his area who are athletic and have won a position on the various teams for the Summer Games, the Canadian Summer Games. I thought that this was an excellent opportunity to talk about recreation and sport across Nova Scotia, and in so doing to look at some of our successes and perhaps some of the challenges that we face as a province. Certainly one of the things I have found since becoming MLA and even as City Councillor before was the tremendous need for facilities around our province, and the need to provide the facilities that will help our young athletes succeed. There are so many that we could refer to. I mean, when facilities are built in a community, it's amazing how the athletes develop and become really very much winning athletes, and in short order end up representing our province provincially and nationally. I'll just give one example. I know that quite often I've heard resolutions from the member from Clare, and he's mentioned racquetball on numerous occasions, and he has many provincial winners in racquetball. And it was of interest to me, why is it that the riding of Clare has developed these wonderful players? Well, the reason is, Mr. Speaker, they have the facilities. Somebody had a vision, somebody had a passion for that sport. They built some courts in a couple of locations, and they have some good coaches. And that's why in that little corner of the province, we now have our best racquetball players. They're not coming out of HRM, where there are just very few facilities to play racquetball. And it's just of interest that when a community does take an interest in a particular sport, develop the facility, that we end up with really champion players. And I think that there are just so many needs as I travel the province and realize that so many communities are working on recreation plans and trying to engage their community to build new facilities. And I think it's so important for us as legislators here in each of our communities to look at the needs and maybe to consider ways that the province could be more involved in helping to support the efforts of communities, because some communities are raising significant amounts of money to meet their recreational demands themselves. I certainly know that when I'm thinking where my summer cottage is in Queens County, when I spend time there in the summer, I've read about Bridgewater working as a community to try and build an aquatic center, a pool, and other facilities. And then not too far away, the town of Liverpool has a committee working to develop a new recreation center and trying to decide what are the best facilities they should be looking at. And the challenges are many for these small communities. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that only a short while ago I had the opportunity to tour the Port Hawkesbury Civic Center, I think they call it, and it is really something to behold. It's about an $18 million center and has been built, I think, under a tremendous amount of leadership from their mayor, Billy Joe McLean. And he took the time while I was traveling through to give me about a 2-hour tour. I was also treated to many stories about how the center came to be, and I'm sure that a couple of members that are here tonight will be able to relate to that. And it was my first time in meeting the mayor of Port Hawkesbury. But after seeing this beautiful center and honestly feeling that this would be something so wonderful in the Clayton Park riding and in the mainland north part of Halifax, which, believe it or not, people may not realize we have very few facilities for an area with, easily 100,000 people could access that site within a 20 or 30-minute drive. We're that densely populated and centrally located that it would be a wonderful site for a rec center. We are working in my community as well to see that happen, but to see what exists in Port Hawkesbury, really, I must say I was envious. But I wanted to find out, how did they do it? And what I found was a community that worked together, that worked with all politicians, regardless of their political stripes, that engaged all the public to the point that everybody contributed in some way. And I was told that if anything, the question is not who did contribute financially to the center. The question is more who did not, and why wouldn't they? Because everybody has given in one way or another. And after seeing the beautiful center and realizing that they had everything that I would possibly imagine we would need, I asked how many people live in the town of Port Hawkesbury, and it's 4,500 people that live in that town, and I had no idea. So I went a little further. How many are in the catchment area for this center? And it's only 15,000 people. And yet all of the businesses and the industry in that area supported it strongly. And again, all the political members at every level, from municipal right through to federal, did all that they could within their own spheres to contribute to that process. And again, I think the community alone raised about $4.5 million. And that's a tremendous amount of money, even with some support from big industry. It's still a tremendous amount of money. And that facility has a wonderful walking track, a brand new ice rink for hockey, and we know that throughout the province, hockey and ice time is very, very valued. Another thing that's interesting as we try and look at how communities achieve that, I had an opportunity last week to speak at the UNSM conference that was held in Bedeck. And in my speech, I did mention the need across the province for recreation facilities. And it was amazing the number of municipal leaders who came up to me afterwards and mentioned their communities and said what their challenges were. And one of the problems is we have an aging infrastructure. As we often hear in this house about the aging roads or older schools. Our recreation facilities that we do have are often getting older, and it's a real challenge for a community to get a replacement facility. In fact, in some ways, I would say harder than it is to build something brand new, because the public already feels they already have that facility in their community, and it's hard then to go out and get them to contribute money to replace it when it's already there and it's already operating. It's just hard to make a case to get that amount of money. Now, in the mainland north part of Halifax, where I am, we have an existing pool, Northcliffe Pool, which its history is that it began as an outdoor pool for the very fledgling community of Clayton Park about, I don't know, 30 years ago, I guess. And it was just a very small community, and it was built outdoors. They put a bubble over it for a number of years, which some people will still well remember. That bubble collapsed, and then a building was built around this outdoor pool. It was never really properly constructed from the start because of the conditions of it not being designed as an indoor pool. But it has served our community. What's interesting, though, is that in the last 15 years, our population in that part of the city has probably more than doubled. I would say it's probably 3 times what it was. And because of that, we have so many more people, and the demands are very heavy on that facility. It's one of the most used pools, and the building is in very bad shape. So it's going to be condemned in some short period of time. And the community is working hard to try and get organized to both fundraise the portion that they should contribute and to raise money by talking to other levels of government and trying to leverage money for that. But in this case, and I think this is probably not uncommon across the province, What we're finding is the municipality is willing to contribute significantly. They're giving $4.5 or at least $4 million towards the replacement pool. But the province and the federal government, through the infrastructure program, the Nova Scotia Canada Infrastructure Program, are giving only $1 million each. And that was just what was agreed upon. I guess that's the way it's done. And of course, that particular project has now been exhausted. There's no more money, so we can't go back and try and increase what's there because the pot of money that was allocated to HRM is now gone. So what we find then is that the municipality is putting a lot more funds into this than the province or the federal government. And what I guess I'm suggesting is that the demands are so great and the benefits are so wonderful. When you think about the benefits of young people that have constructive things to do that can become world-class athletes, like the young people that are the member from Guysborough has mentioned, when we think about the impact on our justice system and on our health and well-being, it's good for every age in our community, and it's something that we desperately need. So I would like to suggest that all parties should be looking seriously at ways that we can support our communities as they raise money and really confront the need for expanded recreational facilities for all ages. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I thank you very much.
Thank you, and the House will adjourn till 12 noon tomorrow. Thank you.